Right, let's get more now on that record-breaking summer transfer window. Sports marketing expert Esteve Calzada joins me in the studio. Very good morning to you. Thanks for coming in. 3 of the last 5 transfer windows then, been a dramatic increase in combined investment of the top 5 European leagues, not just the Premier League. 28% rise compared to the window from last summer. How much do you expect this trend to continue in the coming years?
It will be difficult. I mean, 28% is a lot, coming already from a record high the previous season. And I would say that this summer we've seen a combination of factors that probably we will not see altogether in an upcoming season. The most important one, obviously, are the new TV contracts for the Premier League teams, and that increased dramatically, almost double the disposable income from EPL clubs to go and sign. So I would expect. Also, we could add what happened in Italy with new Chinese investors in some of the clubs, Bundesliga, some of the teams having a big renovation, and that's also contributed to the big numbers. It will be difficult to increase this number, especially for the next 2-3 years. Let's see what happens with the next TV rights cycle in the EPL, because obviously if it goes up again, we'll continue to see the inflation, right?
Yeah, the Premier League, it says, remains the driving force in European football, surpassed that 1 billion spent on players. Serie A second, isn't it? But 571 million, so Premier League almost double their nearest rivals, isn't it? So what will happen with the television revenue? Will it ensure that the Premier League stays out in front for the foreseeable future?
I think so. We are seeing improvement in the other leagues. La Liga it's much better in terms of TV income. Also Bundesliga, Italian Serie A, they are improving, but the distance is so big that I mean the EPL will stay ahead probably forever, or if not for a long time. The difference is even bigger when we take out the sales of players. So if we look at the net investment, which is deducting what you have received from player sales, the difference is even bigger. We see Premier League at around £600 million, and then it's Serie A on 100 million net spending. So it's huge.
So how do other European leagues compete then?
It's a good question. They can compete on the pitch, definitely. I mean, if we look at the international results, Champions League, etc., other leagues, especially Spanish league, are very successful in terms of competing on the pitch. And the way to compete off the pitch sometimes is obviously being very accurate with the finances. Sometimes it's about bringing in foreign investors. We are seeing more and more that the Premier League is already almost done in terms of welcoming foreign investors. So that means that there's a move from the money that would like to come to the EPL is going to other leagues such as Italy or Spain. Then we can also see the other leagues being more active and probably more aggressive in promoting homegrown players and taking more risks. A combination of things need to happen, but it's very difficult to compete, definitely.
OK, well, it comes as no surprise here, I suppose, if we have a look at the club spending, to see 5 Premier League clubs rank in the top 10 of club spending. United, City, spending the most out of any clubs in Europe. We've mentioned the television money, huge sponsorship deals as well. But which way round is this? Are Premier League clubs automatically getting charged more? Or are the other leagues just really getting priced out of players? Which way round is this?
There's an inflation in here for sure. Obviously, if you are to sell a club to a Premier League, a player to a Premier League club, you know that the clubs are wealthy, so probably you will try to kind of price up, right? And that will continue to happen, and it's part of the system, right? So yeah, the teams are paying expensive, and also it has to do with more than one club wanting the same player, which means that if you are in a selling position, you obviously have some bargaining power, and then ask for a higher price, and this probably will continue to happen.
Is it too simplistic to say then that if you're a selling club in France and a Bundesliga club comes in, it's 10 million for the player, suddenly if the Premier League team gets on the phone, it's 20 million. Is that too simplistic?
Not that simplistic, but also you need to factor in the fact that the players want to come to the Premier League, right? And that's also a very important component here. So it has become an aspiration for the players and for the managers to basically be in this league. And also for some leagues, especially just like you were mentioning, the French league, it has become an objective of the clubs to produce players that can ultimately be sold to the EPL clubs. It has become the #1 revenue stream, and if we look at France, we see that it was 100 million negative net spending, which means that basically most of it has been about selling players, and most of them into the Premier League.
Wow. Okay, so let's close in on the most expensive players then. And Man United brought in Paul Pogba for that world record fee. City spent over 40 million on both John Stones and Leroy Sané. 8 of the 10's most expensive players this summer involved English top-flight teams then. So does that perhaps concur with the theory that Premier League teams are simply paying too much, or are we getting, in the Premier League, the better players?
If you look at it from a moral standpoint, these numbers are just ridiculous. They are huge, right? Especially if you compare them to kind of domestic or family matters. Obviously, it's huge numbers, difficult to explain. If we take out morality here, it's just about P&L management. So if these teams have this incredible income from different sources, especially TV rights, it means that they can afford this expenditure. And yeah, it's a lot of money, but and yes, probably it's too much in some cases. Let's not forget also that some of the players are players eligible to play in the Premier League. The restrictions here are higher than in other leagues, and that provokes sometimes an inflation, especially for homegrown players. We know that all the teams need to have at least 8 homegrown players in their squads. So those eligible players automatically become more expensive, and that creates yet another inflation factor.
I see. I've got it now. Esteve, lovely to see you, as always. Thank you very much indeed. Can Hull FC's Challenge Cup win inspire them to further success? Now, for the first time, the Premier League will publish transfer window figures. They'll provide final figures on net spend, sales and net position this afternoon. Esteve Calzada joins us in the studio now to discuss spending across Europe, to give us a snapshot of what's been going on there. Let's start, shall we, with spending. Esteve, let's have a look at this. And what does this tell us here? This is league spend, and look at Ligue 1. Suddenly up to 129 million, the Bundesliga, Serie A, and look at La Liga, down at 14 million pounds. What are we seeing? What trends?
There's plenty of takeaways here. The Premier League spending is the second largest in a winter transfer window, and continues to come up with record high figures. If we put together winter and summer investment, it's the record high in Premier League history for the season. So that's one takeaway. We have also seen a lot of moves in terms of loan type of deals. And
why more loans?
I think what happens is that since there's been plenty of disposable money for the Premier League clubs, what happened in the past is that sometimes they've been bringing in players that not necessarily made it to the team, and probably they were not enough consolidation for them to be brought in. And that means that then for those players that didn't make it for the team regularly, they were put available for the transfer window, because normally the winter transfer window is to fix everyone else's problems. If we look at the rankings, we see that the teams spending most are those that need to fix things in the table. So that's one reading. The other reading, of course, is the Championship, which is in numbers similar to the Bundesliga and Serie A, which is amazing, and that tells us about the importance of going back to the Premier League, going up to the Premier League. So teams are investing on that. Then the other thing is obviously the French league, and with PSG back in high expenditure with 60 million euros, so #2.
Well, let's have a look at clubs and what they've spent, shall we? And look at PSG, way out there. on their own there. Is this to do with their struggles? Is this a quick fix? I mean, they normally run away with the league, don't they? But it's Monaco and Nice who hold the top two places now, and PSG are suddenly going, hang on, we need to do something.
Yeah, sometimes it's because the opportunity comes up available, like Draxler, and maybe it was better to do it now than doing it in the summer, as long as they had the idea to do it anyway. But obviously, if they would be ahead in the league with 15 points lead as we've used to be at the Zlatan times, probably they wouldn't have gone for this investment. Again, very interesting. Crystal Palace, second biggest investment in Europe. Struggling to fighting for relegation, and so to stay in the Premier League. So that's why they have to invest. Marseille, obviously, because of the Dimitri Payet deal, but still not. They have a new owner. They still do not get where they want to be. And even Lille has a new owner. Has brought in 7 new players. That's why combined French league was that high. And Wolfsburg again trying to improve their position in the table.
Interesting. Biggest signings across Europe. Let's have a look at those, and here are some of the most expensive signings that we have. And you mentioned Julian Draxler going for £34 million.
Yeah, both of them from PSG, and then for the rest, 5 of the top 10 most expensive signings have Premier League clubs involved, and including sometimes smaller clubs like Burnley makes it to the top 10, West Ham, of course, bringing in the striker from Napoli. So again, quite busy. Didn't look like that busy half of the window, but at the end of it, even if it was match day yesterday, it was quite busy.
And what influence is China having?
Big one. It's massive, and we still have to wait until they close their window, which is at the end of February. So maybe we still hope, for sure, we'll see some more deals taking place. The impact is massive in terms of players actually going there, or in terms of existing teams trying to retain their talent. And that means basically they have a big offer from China. It means that they have to probably improve salaries. And we've seen Diego Costa, that we had a row there, whether he would go or not. And the impact is massive. And what's surprising is that it's the second year in a row. So I keep on saying that it remains to be seen whether this is something that's going to get consolidated, especially when we take into account that Chinese authorities are starting to put obstacles and restrictions in terms of the number of foreign players that you can have, etc., etc. But for the second year in a row, it's been massive investment. Yes.
Also, you've touched on loan deals as well. Also, sort of curiously, unusually for the English game, we saw a swap deal yesterday between Swansea and Aston Villa. One player moving one way, the other player moving that. It happens in other sports, doesn't it? NFL happens all the time. Is this a trend we could start to see in the future, or is it too complicated in football to see more of those deals?
I think it's rather coincidental because it's a number of factors that need to happen together. The most important one is both teams wanting the player from each other, and then obviously agreeing terms. So this is something I would not expect that will happen very often in the future.
Okay, Esteve, hopefully we'll get to see you more in the future.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for coming in today. And don't forget a full roundup of all the deadline day deals from the English and Scottish leagues. Head over to the website, that's at skysports.com. You'll find all of yesterday's confirmed transfers.